So I'm going to talk about more of what's on my mind tonight than the topic I had originally had planned. So I was originally going to go over the White House's sort of budget proposal for Health and Human Services. They're cutting about 26%, but I want to make sure I put those cuts sort of into the right bins and make sure everything makes sense and I can adequately explain to you what things are being cut. So, video tonight will be a little shorter. Now, I know that I keep saying these videos will be shorter and they end up being a little longer. I ramble, I guess. So, I do want to center around a few things and then sort of veer off into a tirade, a little bit of a tirade. First, we have Pam Bondi in front of the Senate today talking about budget. I believe it was today, it may have been yesterday. Sorry, for me, that is either Thursday or Friday, the 8th or 9th of May. So while Pam Bondi was in front of the Senate, she said there was no world in which Kilmar ever came back, that it wouldn't happen. So, open flouting and defiance of a Supreme Court order. And to be fair, we knew this was happening. This was sort of always the vibe they were going for, and it was always going to be the vibe they were going for, because this is what they want. They want to be all-powerful. That is their defining principle, to have and accumulate power. You also have Kash Patel, who pretends he hasn't read the Constitution, and that is me giving him the benefit of the doubt because I assume he's read it, and that might just make an ass out of me on. And, you know, I mean, we know he wrote a children's book, so he can at least read, I think. Does Kash Patel have crazy eyes to anyone else? Because he does not seem all there to me. At this point, I'm just riffing on a guy who's an asshole, and I guess that's kind of my vibe. I don't want that to be who I am, but they're just sort of everywhere, and it feels like it's worth it. You've got Trump out here announcing trade deals with the UK, where we get nothing except for maybe the chance for us to sell some of our agricultural products to the UK at a lower tariff rate, which again is just lowering the tariffs on those. It does not necessarily mean that the UK will buy them. At the same time, we are lowering our tariffs on British automobiles. So if you want a Rolls-Royce or an Aston Martin or a Mini Cooper, congrats. The first 100,000 we import per year would be without tariffs. Now, again, this isn't even a deal. It's just sort of the framework for what may turn into a deal. And as you know, if there's one thing a Trump can do, it's snatch defeat from the jaws of victory and bankrupt a business, hire terrible people, incoherently ramble. Okay, so there are a few things that a Trump can do. One thing they can't do is pay their debts, but we knew that. But if we're going to be talking about terrible people in the Trump orbit, I do think we have to mention actual Nazi Stephen Miller again. Stephen Miller, who I believe is the real-life answer to the question, what would happen if Dracula only fed on serial killers and sort of ate their vibe along with their blood? Stephen Miller talking about suspending habeas corpus because he's a fucking ghoul. Because he's a fucking monster. He's a fucking coward and a racist and a piece of shit. Stephen Miller should be nowhere near the White House, and yet there he is. But Stephen Miller can go fuck himself. We have laws in this country, no matter how badly he wants us to not have laws. In some more positive news, Ramiza Ozturk, who was the Tufts student who had been detained by ICE for co-authoring an op-ed, has been released at the order of a federal judge, saying that there were both due process and First Amendment claims that were not addressed and that she should not have been detained. So, bravo. She has been released as of the recording of this video. She has been released. So she's out. And we are working our way through these things legally, but you also have to focus on issues that arise elsewhere. You've got the mayor of Newark being arrested while protesting in an ICE facility, members of Congress being manhandled there. It's important to note that this shit isn't normal. It's not normal. It shouldn't be normalized, and we shouldn't be accepting of this. And our sort of fight needs to be with the right. Our vocalization about what is wrong needs to focus there. And so that's the thing I wanted to have a little bit of a tangent on. And again, this one will be a shorter video because this tangent, and then I'm done for the night. So what it is important to know is that we are in a moment that is existential for the way this country will function, for the people in it, and for the people of the world who interact with it. And it is important that we on the left understand where these lines are drawn and how we react and respond. Our fight, our main concern, the thing we need to focus on, the thing we need to be doing, is aiming our criticism and our attention at the right. Making sure we call out what is wrong, making sure that we are vocal about that. We do not have time. We do not have the focus or the energy or the luxury of looking internally to the left and fighting amongst ourselves. We do not have time or effort or energy that we can expend purity testing each other. We have a common enemy. That enemy is an existential threat to our democracy. And it would behoove us to focus on that, to focus on the thing in front of us, instead of looking around and finding people on our own side to tear down. People make mistakes. And whether that is a person saying something or a person interpreting the way someone said something. We're human. And if you're on the left already, that generally means you give a shit. It generally means you care about doing what's right. And we don't turn in on each other and tear each other down. We should be building each other up. We are all in this together. And every bit of effort we spend on each other is effort that we do not spend elsewhere. We need to be working on making sure that our focus is turned outward. We need to make sure that we are focusing on the very real wrongs and dangers of what's happening. And we need to be sure that we are not making the left a hostile space for people who want to be here or who are open to being here. Not everyone is perfect, and no one is perfect. And people will make mistakes. It is our job to bring them in. It is our job to help people, to be understanding. We don't turn and attack people who make mistakes, who are honest about what they're doing. We don't do that to people, or we alienate them. And the right has benefited from alienation in this way. And I think it's important that we understand that there is a very real distinction between people who should be given the benefit of the doubt and people who shouldn't. Between people we should help and accept and understand and people who we shouldn't. If a woman is calling a child a racial slur, we don't help that person, right? We don't. They get no benefit. There's no excusing that. But if someone says something that's a little wrong, when they're trying to articulate something else, if we think someone is being a way that is microaggressive or aggressive towards someone, we work with that. You try to understand, you try to figure out what the disconnect is. We are supposed to be tolerant. We are supposed to be helping the people around us. And we need to do that. We need to do that consistently. We need to work together to do that. When we turn around and fight against each other, we burn energy and time and focus from where it belongs. With the illegal, with the unconstitutional, with the unethical, and the immoral actions of the right. And we can't do that. We don't have the luxury of that. We stand together or we fall apart, always. They have one defining tenet, and that is their fealty to Trump. And it is real easy for them to coalesce around that. And we don't get that. So what our thing has to be is something unifying and something whole that brings us all on the left together, something we all believe in, a core tenet. And I think that tenet is that people deserve respect and kindness. Maybe it's that. Or maybe it's that we believe in justice or fairness. Maybe it's that we believe in doing what is right. And whatever that thing is that unites us, we have to remember how important that thing is. We have to understand that our ability to stand up for others, our willingness to stand up for others, is generally what landed us on this side of the aisle. That we give a shit about people around us. That we give a shit about people we never met and will never meet. That we care about each other. And we can't lose that when we look at our own side. We can't say that we care about everyone and everything and then we throw people away who haven't done things to warrant that. I think it's important for all of us to remember that we are in this together. And as that group of ants fights the grasshoppers, the more those ants section themselves and segregate themselves out, the weaker a force they are. This is a moment, just as every moment since his first administration, where we have to strive to always be better. In aspects not just of our own personality, but of the way we treat others. And I specifically talk about when we are talking about the left and people who don't pay attention. You need not give space to racists or assholes or fascists or bigots. You don't have to. As a matter of fact, I would argue you shouldn't. I would argue you should not. You should push back on those people. But we have to be willing to look past the smallest things that divide us to see the biggest things that unite us. So, like I said, shorter video. This time I think I actually delivered. Next week, I will talk about the White House's potential budget for HHS. I might also dig into the absolute dog shit letter, sort of recommendation or study by RFK's department about trans healthcare. And I guess I'll also dig into RFK's bullshit about how if you're healthy, sickness doesn't kill you, which is stupid. Because if you get sick, you are no longer healthy. And thus, you could get worse. We are not out of this. We're not gonna be out of this. Because we're gonna keep fighting. So, take care of yourselves. Take care of each other. Let's keep fucking going.